is imposter syndrome bad? And isn't it only a degree away from being honored to be in a space? Because you're probably there if you have imposter syndrome thinking, why am I here? I don't belong. I don't know these things. I'm just learning. Why would anybody follow me? Or you could just put it one notch over and say, I don't know how I got here, but I am honored to be in this space with this capacity. And I think that's it's just a click away from imposter syndrome, and I think it's a good thing.
Welcome to the But podcast, where leaders transform excuses into breakthroughs. I'm Marc Wolfe, host and author of But. I interview New York Times bestselling authors, human rights activists, former CIA director, and everyone in between. Our guests share how they overcome doubts like I'm not ready to but I don't have time. Join us to learn how you can do the same. I want to make sure our audience gets to know a little bit about who you are. So if you could tell them 2 things about you personally, 2 things professionally, and why it would matter to them.
2 things personally. Is like, wow, how personal do we want to get here?
It's okay.
So number 1, my wife, Brienne, love her to death. She is the thing of my life. My 3 kids are just so important. That's why I'm here. It's what I do. The other part is, and we're probably going to talk a little bit about it in this recording, is my life is a complete contradiction. I'm part of many different worlds. I don't always fit in each of those worlds properly, but I think it makes me who I am today. It makes my socks, like you pointed out earlier. Just
pizza socks.
I like pizza. Everything is about pizza. If you need some ideas about pizza in Nashville, come to me. Professionally, some of the important things, I think, really blending all parts of your life. I remember meeting somebody years and years ago when they were retiring, and the people, like the family members, didn't quite recognize the person retiring in the same way that the family members knew that person and the coworkers knew that person. It was all these different ways of being. So I try to show up every day as me. I hope my wife would know me just like you would know me, and just like my coworkers would know me. I think that's important. And to go with that contradiction, I think my 2 favorite leaders are Colin Powell and Mr. Rogers. And it feels like a contradiction, but if you ever want to be heard, or you ever want to get ground truth, or you ever have to figure out how to really get through a problem with good intention, I think those are 2 people to look forward to.
Wow. You really have kicked this off in a way that really shows that you think and see things differently, and that's why I wanted to interview you. I heard you were a skateboarder. Is that true?
Yes, yeah. So, as a kid, a lot of things happened on my 7th birthday.
Okay.
I got a skateboard, I got a guitar, and I got a dirt bike.
Wow.
Not all at the same time,
okay.
Like different times, like Christmas, birthdays, and other things. To this day, I still do like all of those things. And when I got into my teens, I went to watch a band called Fugazi, and I thought, I have a guitar, I want to make a band, that's what I want to do. It was a life-changing moment, and I thought that was really interesting. And at the same time, I was skateboarding and just doing what young punk rock kids do, and having fun up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, in the city. So yeah, that's what I did, and then I joined the military. So it was like a very natural transition.
One of the things that I realized is that people that like music, especially punk rock and skateboard, they're part of a subculture that usually likes to do things their own way.
Yeah.
Yet you join the military, and they really like to do things that are completely different than your own way.
You think so? Because let's have that conversation. So this is the interesting part, because I've had that question a lot, even from friends, when I said, hey, I was in a touring band, we were doing really great, we were opening up for some of the biggest bands in the world, and then I said, I'm going to go serve a bigger mission. I'm going to go into the Air Force. I want to be an intelligence officer. I want to do these things. Everybody thought I was insane. But there is a way that these all fit together, and it fits even being a CIO or a CISO or whatever you're doing in the corporate space. So as a skateboarder, you get hurt, you're scared all the time. It's an adrenaline rush too, it's not all scared and pain, but it's really, really fun. But then, like, one part that people always forget about the skateboard community is if you and I are skateboarding and you do a trick and you land it, I am more happy for you than I will ever be for myself. And if you don't believe me, go watch any video. Watch Tony Hawk landing his first 900. Everybody swarms them. That's natural. That's what 12-year-old kids are doing on ramps. Their friend lands something and you are cheering them on. It is the funnest thing in the world. You root your friends on. But there's also that discipline that falls in there. So, you know, I had to learn guitar. I play drums. I play violin. I play piano. I skateboard. I like dirt bikes. All those things are exactly like the military. If you go to do these things, you put on your uniform, you get a little bit scared, and you try, and you try, you bust up your shins, you break an arm, you go right back, you keep doing it. I started playing ska music, which is a very niche music, and it's all very subculture. As I got older, I started playing that type of music, and I've mentioned this before to people that, you know, when you're playing in front of, let's say you're playing in front of 2,000 people, sometimes you're delivering a message that people don't want to hear, but you have to do it, and you have to figure it out, and you have to be able to take that feedback. And how many times have you been in front of a crowd as a leader or as a senior leader, and you're going, this is not going well? That's a great thing to figure out when you're 15, you know, and you're touring around the world and trying to figure that stuff out. So it's a lot of commonalities.
No, so it's beautiful because here's what happens. A lot of people, and I ask you questions that I know people ask you because I think a lot of people need to hear those questions and answers. But the thing is that two people can be faced with the same exact situation and not see the link. Right. So it reveals a lot of the way how you think. And it reveals how you kind of put things together and go, well, this is very similar. It's about camaraderie. It's about unity. It's about collaborating around somebody. It's about overcoming fears, right? Where somebody else goes, I don't get that connection. So you're wired in a way where you can see how to bridge the gap, how to put things together. And I guess that's what's made you gonna be able to be successful in these different roles, is you see those links. That's not what a lot of people do. The part, I guess, that's the most exciting part is going from theory to execution.
Yeah.
Because watching somebody do something, that's entertainment. But doing it, that's where you actually get to see how well you do it, course correct, and adjust.
Yeah, so when you have that new song and you play it in front of a crowd the first time, buckle up. you don't know what's going to happen. I think there's something to building repetition, process, understanding how the train's running, but isn't it so fun to ask, why is there a train? Just do something completely different. And what if it works? What if it doesn't? And that's one of the things I love about working in a university in art. Both my boss, Brett Sweet, one of the smartest people I've ever met, and our chancellor, Daniel Diermeyer, he encourages taking a chance. If you're trying something big and bold, you're doing a moonshot, give it a go, try it. If it fails, we'll pick you up and we'll dust you off and let's get on to the next thing. And I think it's a good way to live.
Well, in my book, But, we talk about, but what if I fail? And almost every technology product had a failure moment. And everything from PDAs to Newtons to the iPhone we have today had to have failures to move forward because they had to test the boundaries and see what people liked and iterate and adjust. Yeah. But people don't like to fail, right? They just want it to always be successes.
Right.
And they just want it to work. Just make it work.
Yeah.
But that's not really the way things do from skateboarding to the military to universities. It doesn't just work. You have to fail forward, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's really important to give your teams that space too, where you have an open place for that failure. And I try to draw a very distinct line. There's a big difference between trying and failing and being negligent or just doing ridiculous things. It's a big difference. But yeah, you really have to encourage that space of knowing that you're going to dust yourself off. We're going to be there. Just like in skateboarding or anything, if you fall, your friends are going to laugh at you, but they will come help you. I swear they will. It's a true story.
So talk about some of the buts that you have encountered in your career that you want to kind of share.
Well, you've kind of talked a little bit about it, about the failure side of it, where it's kind of a mixture between failure and are you ready? Those are two specific things in your book that resonate, where there are times when you get approached for something that you might not have been expecting. And for me, that was becoming CIO. I was the first CISO for Vanderbilt. I was in the middle of creating a program and completely, kind of reforming their security posture. And I was approached to be CIO, and I thought for a while, like, well, this is great. I've actually avoided being a CIO a couple times, but I thought, this feels right, it seems right, but am I ready? Holy heck, what if I fail? There were a handful of CIOs before me. How did that operate? How did that work out? What am I ready for that? So I thought it was a really good opportunity, and I'm really committed to the mission of Vanderbilt. I think we have just amazing people, leadership. Our students are just outstanding. The research we're doing is changing the world. So I thought, why not? This is something new in my life. I can look at Vanderbilt in a different lens. Being a CIO is a little bit different from being a CISO because it's a little bit more scale. You're doing a little bit different things. You get in different conversations. But I thought, why not? But going into that first week, you're thinking, well, what if I mess this up? What if I just fall on my face? It's one of the most recognizable brands in Tennessee. There's a 150-year legacy. I can't goof this up. But one of the things that really helped me was my leadership team, where I was a peer in the executive leadership team. Then I became a leader of the executive leadership team. They were so welcoming and warm and accepting in me moving into that role. They were positive about it. And again, to go back to things like bands and skateboards in the military, if you're in that mission and you're with the right people, you're going to repel and get bin Laden. There's no doubt about it. And that's how I felt. I thought, yeah, this is a really great place to be. I'm surrounded by the right people. I have the right mission. We're going to do this, and it's going to be good.
It sounds like culture and understanding the mindset of the people you're with has played a significant role.
Yes.
And in all those instances. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how you tie together skateboard has a community, but there's also a mindset of like, hey, if something goes wrong, we're going to help you. We don't want to see you hurt. We're going to still laugh at you when you do something stupid.
Absolutely.
Because it was stupid and you'd laugh at us, right?
Yeah.
But also knowing how to do that and be able to work through it. It's interesting because a lot of people don't have cultures like that where they're set up and they're the first whatever to do it. And there's an expectation that's almost unrealistic for that person, because now they not just represent technology, they might represent a gender, they might represent an area they're from, they might represent all this other stuff, and they were like, I just wanted to do this part of the job, but now you're putting all this other burden on me that isn't what I signed up for, nor was I trained for. I'm just trying to be me. How does that happen when you're given something that's way wider than you even thought?
Yeah, so when I think about that, I think we all know people that go into a room and have to tell you who they are. And they say, I'm the EVP or I'm the SVP, and this is how we're going to do things because of my role, and look at this rank or whatever. A lot of those things I try to just blow off. I don't care. But I do find when I start getting stressed about things, it is because of the office that you hold. And you want to respect that, and you want to honor your institution, whatever that institution is. But I find I operate best when I just focus on the mission. And that's where I get clarity, when I find myself in those modes where, first you start getting caught up of like, well, what's this going to look like? Or is this going to impact the teams like this? Are they going to see my office in this way? And it's like, you know what? We know we have to do this. Everything else is chaff. It's just noise.
It's amazing because even before we officially met a few years ago, when I mention your name, they're like, oh my gosh, he's a really great guy. And I was like, okay, I've heard that before, but I heard it from everybody. And then I met you, And I realized how humble a leader you are. And even in my research, you were like, it's my team. It's all these other people that have done it. But you actually live that out. Like, you really don't want to make it about yourself. You do make it about others. Do you see that as some things that people miss, that they don't get that it's about others, and they kind of take too much of the it's about me and not about the collaborative effort?
Yeah. Oh, that's 100% about me. I'm amazing. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Completely kidding. No, I do think people get caught up in that, where they want to be the face of something, or they want to get credit for something, or whatever it is. I think I have a lot of empathy when I see people getting stuck, and we've probably all been in those meetings where we have teams or people that just have to be the face of something, or they have to be the driver, they have to be involved in everything. And when I look at that, I think there's probably two things going on. It's like, it probably had something to do with the way they grew up, or where you heard in some way, like whatever happened, why do you need that type of attention? But the other part that is even more important, I think, is trust. Because when I see people like that, they don't trust their team. They don't trust others. They don't trust how you view them. So they're always trying to control that narrative. But I think once you let that go and just focus on your mission, focus on what you have to do, protect your team, protect your institution, all that other stuff just fades away. But you have to have that trust. And I found myself in some of those situations where you get caught up in your head, and maybe you're caught up in a weird project, and you get worried about failure, you get worried about how things are going to come across. It's all going back to ego, trust, and just your makeup of how you evolved in this world, I think.
I see it a lot with imposter syndrome, and I mentioned that in the book, where people, like, there was a stat, 60 to 70% of CEOs, leaders have it, where they're like, even though they're well educated, or even though they've had experience, they still feel like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to be found out because there's things I don't know. Well, there's nothing that everybody all knows, right?
Yeah.
But it's how you react to the unknown. How do you deal with things, especially because of technology, or even in the military? You don't know everything. What's your attitude?
I don't know anything at all.
What's your attitude toward things that you don't know, and how do you approach that?
Yeah, so when I was very young in my career in the military, as an intelligence officer, you have to brief. That's one of the things you have to learn, where you have to learn to get in front of people, read reports, and then you have senior officers or others just beating you to death. You know, that's part of the training. That's just
sounds like a good old time. Oh,
yeah, that's just what they do. They beat you up.
Yeah.
But one of the things that they get you on, and this is really important in the intelligence world, that directly translates to a board, to executive committees, to anything else, it's okay to say, I don't know, I will get back to you. And they are the first to tell you, because if you do that in your briefing for somebody to go, you know, fly across Bosnia, or you're getting somebody to go trek out in Afghanistan, and you're making crap up, you're in big trouble, and you're going to put somebody in big trouble. So it's okay to say, I don't know, as long as you follow up, as long as you can get back to the group and talk to them. But, you know, one thing I would challenge on that, to the earlier part of that question, is about imposter syndrome, where those two things can conflict. If you have severe imposter syndrome, you have an ego and you don't know something, that is a recipe for disaster. So how do you get out of that? And one thing I try to think about is imposter syndrome bad? And isn't it only a degree away from being honored to be in a space? Because you're probably there, if you have imposter syndrome, thinking, why am I here? I don't belong. I don't know these things. I'm just learning. Why would anybody follow me? Or you could just put it one notch over and say, I don't know how I got here, but I am honored to be in this space with this capacity. And I think that's it's just a click away from imposter syndrome, and I think it's a good thing.
Hey there, it's time for a quick break. While we're diving into how to live, learn, and lead better, I wanted to let you in on something I'm really excited about. If you've ever found yourself stuck in the yeah, but cycle, those moments where excuses get in your way of your potential, my new book, Yeah, But, Cut Through the Noise to Live, Learn, and Lead Better is for you. The book is packed with practical strategies, real stories, and actionable advice to help you stop making excuses and start making progress. Whether you're a leader, a learner, or just someone looking to cut through the noise, Yeah, But has something for you. And here's the best part. For a limited time, you can grab a chapter for free. Just head over to my website at www.marcawolf.com/book to get started. Readers have already said that the perspective and stories guided them to get unstuck and move forward. All right, let's get back to the show and dive into more ways to break through those yeah, but moments.
And it's interesting because there's a lot of things that are just a degree away from how the perception, because things ride a very thin line, because you could take and have a team and be open door policy and have conversation, but it can get excessive to the point where you can't get anything accomplished.
Yeah.
And then you could be one of these where you're like, what is the right balance? But that's what life's about. Understanding what the right balance is for you and your team, not universally. Because if you apply a rule to everything universally, it doesn't work real well. I mean, you're married, you got kids. Can you apply even the same rules across the board to each one of your children exactly the same and expect the exact same results?
Absolutely not.
And that's always my favorite example, is because I'm like, if you've had more than one child, you can know that they could be raised by the same parents, ate the same food, live in the same house, and they could not be more different.
Day by day. The same thing that worked on Monday won't work on Tuesday.
So just imagine there's somebody where genetically they are from you, and now you're going to work with employees or work with a team where you don't even know what their day was like, right? You don't even know what they're going through, but you're trying to apply rules. It's really about listening. So I'm going to presume that you know how to listen a little deeper, and actually you ask questions in real time to people. Now, you didn't prep me on this, but I'm going to guess that you might be open enough to ask questions. Am I correct in that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah,
Okay.
I think so. I think, or at least I hope. I would hope
I'm
people.
sure your
people would
employees
see
will
that.
be like, oh no, and in the comments they'll put
Yeah,
in
in the
here.
comment section. Be nice. Yeah, and I think, kind of going with a theme, I could probably give a million business examples of, sitting in a room and whiteboarding and trying to figure out a problem, or just hearing about personal issues you have. But one of the things that I think was really good for me in that space, it kind of goes back to our first conversation. Being a very young musician, you have to figure out, like, the punk rock ethos, in that subculture of a world. You could be 15, 16 years old, and I've lived this, and figure out, I'm going to put out an album, and I'm going to travel around the country in a van with people and call promoters and figure out how to get into clubs that I'm probably not old enough to get into. We're going to make money, we're going to eat, we're going to make connections, and you just figure it out without the support of major record labels, without the support of anybody else. You stuff the CDs, you do these things. Now, directly to your question, in that type of stuff, when you're 16, 15, whatever, 18, you learn also to get into a studio and somehow corral anywhere between 3 and 15 people to create a song that you wrote, and try to get it out in your vision with a lot of personalities and creative types around you with a lot of opinions, trying to hammer away at all this stuff and just nitpicking every little sound, every little inflection. But then it goes back to even the earlier part, is you have to trust them, so you have to be around the right people. There are many times in those studios where we had to say, okay, I don't hear it right now, but I love you to death. I trust you. You have a good ear. You're passionate about it. We'll put it out like that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but that's the whole learning process. And business is the same exact way. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
But it's your attitude toward that I continue to hear that's your differentiator. I mean, I work with a lot of people through my career, and I know the fear of failure, right? Public failure concerns a lot of people because it's embarrassing, it's humbling. Then there's other people that embrace it to the point where they're like, well, bankruptcy is just part of the American way. We just restart and do that. So there's this spectrum of the way people react. But, you know, at 15, your frontal lobe's not even fully formed. So, I mean, there's things that you do. So if your 15-year-old said to you, or your kid said to you, hey, Dad, I think I want to do that, would you be like, heck yeah, go for it?
Oh, I feel like this really turned on me. No. Kids, do not watch this. Like, this is,
but it's just funny that you think, like, I kind of expected that you'd be like, well, I mean, you know, it's a little different if it's my kids. It's me.
No. There's probably a lot of stories that could go. My parents let me ride a motorcycle at 16 years old in the city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
There were a lot of questionable things happening. But no, absolutely not. I would not let my kids tour America with a punk rock band at 16
or
years
Europe.
old.
I mean, when did you go overseas?
That's not too long ago. I'm still a musician. I do a lot of work. The main band I was playing in, we're on hiatus for a good while. But I think my last time in Europe was 17, 18, somewhere around there.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay, so that's, you know, what I want people to be able to hear is that they look at roles and people, because there's a bell curve, right? And most people that take a technology role or take a leadership role or certain types of personalities that do a certain thing.
Yeah.
What I want to be able to show them with you is that you can still have fun. You can still be completely responsible, have kids, be able to do things, but be able to mix this together.
Yeah.
And it's the way your brain operates that you're able to kind of piece this together. Because there's some people who couldn't. It would be like, if I was going to do that and live that music lifestyle, there's a lot of other things that have gone on with it. I wouldn't be able to hold down a technology role at one of the largest institutions that's very conservative about what they do. It just seems like a contrast. But you being able to put together, it sounds like you also know how to get people on your side to believe, if I do what I say I'm going to do, can I also do this other thing? Because you know my character. How much does that play as a role that you think that you've gotten so far because of the way you know how to listen, communicate, and your character and integrity in what you do?
Yeah, I think that last word is really important. I think integrity is critical. I think trust is critical. I used to work for Tractor Supply, and they had one of their key tenets was positive intent. And to this day, in my kitchen, we have this magnet kind of thing where we put all of our travel stuff. And I still have that magnet. It's the biggest one there across our wine thing. But I think that's really critical. If you do not have positive intent, it comes out. People can smell it. You just know. We've probably all been in rooms where you're like, where is that person coming from? Are they political? Do they really believe that? If you don't believe in your mission, it's going to come out. If you don't connect with your folks, that's really going to come out. So I think it plays a big part. But you just, even if you're wrong, if you have positive intent, it's okay if you're trying.
Yeah, because things fall short, but I got to know where you're going. And it seems like now agenda is not a bad word, but we use it because people have an agenda.
Oh yeah, we all have agendas.
Right, but I mean, it's not a bad word because having an agenda is how, when I work with clients, so it's like the meeting has to have an agenda because we got to know where we're going. We got to know what players need to be in the room, and we got to know what we're trying to accomplish. So it's not a bad thing. But now when we use it, it's like, oh, that person had an agenda, which we use negatively to say they were trying to divisively make it about them. That's not what the word agenda is about. You can go and just think what you're saying is like, you know, Tractor Supply and Joe Scarlett and those tenants and other things, those are foundational.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's what they do, even hiring within, and a lot of things they do has made that organization literally flourish for a lot of times. So you got to learn through each one of where you were planted all the way up. And I remind people that. So tell me a few stories where you got to take some of the things that you didn't think you would be able to use at a certain age or a certain job, and you're still using them today as a full-grown person that's married and has kids, and you're still using some of these things that you learned a way long time ago.
Oh, you're going to age me. No, just kidding. No, I think I tell my wife Brienne this all the time, where we talk a little bit about it. One of the best things one of the best words of advice I ever had were from my grandfather, who said, "If you can't buy it, you can't afford it." And when I was young, I wanted GI Joes, and I would say, "Just put it on your credit card, or do something like this." And he would let us know that if you can't buy it, you can't afford it. So because of that, I've lived a life of being debt free. That's just how I was made. And I know it's not directly associated, but I have to give a shout out to my grandfather, because that was something I learned very, very young. It didn't make sense until I started getting older and starting doing things, and I learned, like, oh, that's not good to get into those spaces. But there are a lot of things from leaders that I picked up along the way. I think there was a lot at Tractor Supply around good intent and positive intent. And the CEO once told me, when I was first hired, he walks in and he says, I had no idea who he was. And he goes, "Hey, if you're talking to somebody from the store and I walk in or anybody walks in, you stay with that store. They are the most important in this company." And I said, "Roger that, I got that." And that kind of sticks with me, of like, what's really, really important for your space. I remember Larry Quinlan at Deloitte, he used to say all the time, if people don't trust you doing the little things, how are they going to trust you to do the big things? And that was something that, when I heard it first, I thought, that's a cliche, isn't it? But as you start working through your career, you realize that's 100% true.
So what do you think, because you've been a leader and you have this knowledge imparted on you, and it sounds like you at least work with other people to help them be better. What's some of the things that are your core that if I ask some of your employees or some people that you work with, they would be like, this is something that I've learned because he really makes it real?
Oh, that's a good question. I think if you talk to my team, I even put it in job descriptions if I'm posting on LinkedIn. Having a sense of humor is a necessity where we work and what we do. We have such a cool job. We work in technology. We're all doing this because we're probably teenagers playing around with games or other things, computers, programming. I think approaching and being able to laugh at work is so important. It's just critical. Just loosen everything up. We take our job so serious. Don't take yourself so serious.
My wife said to me, she's like, "You know why I married you?" And I was like, "My good looks?" She's like, "No, you were funny."
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, that's whatever it takes, right?
Yeah, right.
But it's funny because I think if you don't know how to laugh at yourself and you don't know how to laugh and be able to do it, you could be so serious that you could miss opportunities to enjoy life.
100%. Yeah.
So don't normally ask this question, but here's this question. What do you wish people knew about you sooner? It takes a while for people to know others. And sometimes it takes months, or depending on your interactions, it might take years if you don't see somebody often enough. Yeah. But if they knew it earlier, they would react different. Let me give you an example. I met somebody once and I asked this question. It's my more recent question. And they said, "I wish people knew that I wasn't mad when I make a face. It's me thinking." And it can be very standoffish because the way I think, it looks like I'm mad, but I'm just thinking. And they're like, if people knew that. And I was with a bunch of people and they were like, wow. And the first time I met this person, I was like, wow, that's really helpful, because I thought you didn't like where I was going with this question. And they're like, no, it's just my face. And I was like, wow. So imagine if you could tell somebody, hey, when I make this face, it's actually not me being mad at you. It's actually just me. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something where you're like, wish people knew.
Yeah, so it actually goes into what we were just talking about, is sometimes because I can be very light, or I like to have fun. I think the world is funny. I think it's great. Some people don't think that I might not always take things seriously, but I am dead serious. Under the hood, I'm dead serious about what I do and how I do it. I'm very disciplined in my work. It's kind of like a duck, where it might go smooth here, but those legs are kicking. And sometimes if things work well and you have some levity about things, people think it was easy. And that is a difficult thing to get across to a team, where it's not all parties and pizzas and Mountain Dew and having jokes and having fun. We have a dead serious job that we have to take very serious. It takes a lot of work. Sometimes it takes late nights. Sometimes it takes just sitting up at 2 o'clock in the morning thinking about something because you can't sleep about it. It's like, even though there's that levity and all that, having fun with what we do, that doesn't mean you don't take it deadly serious.
That's great. So as we wrap up, what stories, what else you want to leave? What question did I not ask that you want to make sure you get out? Because this podcast is about everybody listening, not about us. We just happen to be here as figureheads to help other people see themselves and be like, we're not any different, they're not any different. So what do you got for them?
Some of the things I tell my team is, the first one is, I want to help you create a resume that you could work anywhere in the world, but I want to create a culture that you want to do it here. So let's really invest in that. But then the second half of that is, your job, I don't know what the numbers are, it could be 60, 80%, whatever it is, 80%. 80% of what you do should be based on your job description and what you do. But that 20%, chase a passion. Do something. I will support you. It doesn't even have to be in IT. It doesn't have to be directly in what you're doing, but chase a passion. Enjoy what you're doing, because that's where you're going to make a difference. And I may be projecting, because I think that's where I find my success is, I failed many times in the past by just going through motions of saying, well, to be senior manager, I have to do this, or to become commander, I have to do this XO gig, and I have to do these things in the military to check this box to get to this next rank. The most miserable times of my life when I do things like that. But if I follow things that I'm passionate about, it's just works out. And I generally think that's true about a lot of people. Maybe not everybody, but most people.
I already want to have you back to talk more about music and touring and other things, but thank you so much for this opportunity to learn more about you, for you to share, and to also get to know that overcoming buts isn't always a linear path. Sometimes you have to see how things piece together.
Oh, thanks. And thanks for having me, Mark. And thanks for what you're doing in our community. I've been to a couple of your events and to a couple of things you've hosted. I think you're just doing a great job pulling together a lot of people that would never usually be together. So I really appreciate that for Nashville.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shane.
Thank you for listening to the But podcast. If today's episode provided valuable perspective on how to overcome the excuses that can hold you back, let us know in the comments. Remember, it's not about the buts. It's about finding ways to live, learn, and lead better every day. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who could use a little kick to get past their own buts. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And for even more tips, connect with me at marcawolf.com/podcast. Until next time, keep challenging those excuses and keep moving forward.